You may be wondering why anyone would want to leave a beautiful winter day up in northern Ohio and head south down to Florida. But I think if you watch Gina and I in this movie, you'll figure out why we decided to do that. I drove down to Belmont, North Carolina, and Jean, are you home? After there, we decided to spend a day and take in the Natural History Museum there, and Jean was checking out to see whether the dinosaur eggs had hatched yet. After a hearty breakfast, Jean and I decided to head on down to Jekyll Island and St. Simon's Island in Georgia, and visited Driftwood Beach there and Jekyll. Much to our surprise, a 660-foot long cargo ship had capsized just at the side of the shipping lane to the Brunswick port. It had 4,200 new Hyundais and Kias aboard. It was capable of carrying 7,700 cars aboard. From there, we headed on down to the Villages area, visited Alberta and Don Roberts, friends of ours from high school, and cousins Jerry and Joyce, and Jean got to try out her new electric assist bicycle that we bought from Jerry and Joyce. Here she is trying it out for the first time, and here comes Jerry and Joyce with his power-assisted bike, power assist being Joyce. And this also happened to be the week of Mardi Gras, so things were going on at the downtowns in the villages. There's 3 downtowns, and wonder what people do there in the evenings. Well, they go down to the downtowns and listen to live music. Each of the 3 downtowns having live bands and a place to dance and have fun. And the week of Mardi Gras, there's some real unusual costumes we saw there also. Florida has many birds there. From the village, while we were in the villages, we went over to Denellen and rode on the Blue Run Trail, bicycle trail there. It's a beautiful trail, wide, plenty of space, paved. And here we are, we missed a turn, and so making a turn around to go back the other way. Well, we can go. We decided it was time for something to eat and drink, and stopped at Swampy's. And while there, we watched some kayakers on the Rainbow River. That Swampy's is on the shore up there. They have wonderful clam chowder there.
Disappointing me. Come on, Lou.
Here the park resource person was trying to talk Lou to come up out of the water for a pumpkin. Lou is 60 years old in January of this year and is the oldest in the United States and possibly the oldest in the world. Here, something I've never seen before, an alligator attacking another alligator. Don't understand what it was all about, but interesting. There's a key deer, a manatee, and a rehab tank. a Florida panther, a rare specimen, a red-headed vulture, a rosette spoonbill, a number of other birds, flamingos, pink flamingos, and many fish in the observable in the underwater observing area. Jerry's hobbies is racing radio-controlled model speedboats.
2, 1.
Evening in Spanish Springs downtown, grabbing a little dessert on the way home. Then we stopped at Brownwood downtown area at the entrance to check out the cattle, make sure they were still contained, and tried milking one with no luck. Next stop was down in St. Petersburg. This was the Airbnb that we stayed in. Very nice. The owner was rather eclectic in art and had attended 4 Burning Man celebrations. Nearby were numerous restaurants within walking distance. The street that the Airbnb was on, one end of the street dead-ended into a park around. In St. Pete, we met up with Jean's friends, Connie and Harry, and had drinks overlooking on the 6th floor of a hotel overlooking Tampa Bay. And later one evening we met at a cafe overlooking the Gulf Coast, which was a beautiful spot for a sunset. We drove from St. Pete up to Tarpon Springs on the Pinellas Peninsula. It's on the Gulf Coast, center of sponge fishing in the United States, and that industry drew a large Greek population there. It was founded in 1807. Here Jean is trying out her bike before we hit the Pinellas Trail. It's a Rails to Trail Hall of Fame trail, and beautiful trail goes from St. Pete all the way up north of Tarpon Springs and gives you about 45 miles of riding space that we were riding down to Dunedin. We were doing a drive-by, ride-by, you might call it. It's a very popular trail between pedestrians. Some areas have pedestrian trail alongside of the bicycling trail. Coming up here was a school on the right-hand side, and they had some crossing guards to help guide the children across the trail. There was a few dogs that were having fun playing with each other here on the trail. Coming up here, you might notice how courteous the drivers are. We were really impressed. Here the driver stopped at a 4-way stop here. We hadn't even gotten to the stop sign yet, but they waited and waved us on through. I'd have to say that the drivers intersecting with the trail were much more courteous than some of the drivers on the major highways in Florida. This is a ramp. We were going up here up to an elevated, I guess you call it a bridge, above the traffic below us, and that then crosses over a major highway here, and you'll see coming up. Here we're still on the elevated bridge area and about ready to cross over the highway. Another beautiful town, about 11 miles south of Tarpon Springs. Very artsy town, nice shops, a lot of nice restaurants.
I think that train station was supposed to.
Here we decided to park the bicycles and take a walk into downtown Dunedin. Doggone gnarly cable. Some scenes from downtown and the dock area. Nice restaurant, open air. A nice cruiser. Boat with three 350 horsepower motors. Here's a crossing painted like a fish. And then we also visited Haslam's bookstore. It's kind of a famous place there in St. Pete. 30,000 square feet, 300,000 volumes. We made a stop at the Moravian Center for Clay. Very interesting place. One of the largest kilns here, about 40 feet long, that I've ever seen. Many, many kilns there. They have residents and artists in residence there. Very nice facility. And the first train station built in St. Pete. We made another stop one day at the DeSoto State Park. Here's Jean checking aiming of the cannon there, and I was checking out the bore. And spent a short time in jail there. This is right on the tip of actually it's on an island off the tip of the southern end of St. Pete, and of course is a entry point into Tampa Bay, which played a large part in a lot of years of military action to guard the entrance to Tampa Bay. Jean and I having lunch on the sidewalk in downtown, and we visited the Dali Museum in downtown. Quite an interesting spot. This painting here, it looked like a skull in the center. When you come up close, it's two nuns, also Abe Lincoln, and the closer you get, it turns into something else. And spent a part of an afternoon at the Saturday, or I should say morning. They have a Saturday market in midday in downtown St. Pete in a city park. That happens to be the Methodist Church in the background there. This young lady was doing poetry for hire. We went on to visit the Fantasy Flight at Polk City. Another interesting spot for aircraft enthusiasts. Huge selection of vintage aircraft. And then we made a stop in Kissimmee at the Monument Estates. And of course there we had to look for the stone from our farm in Ohio, placed there in 1942 by my grandfather, Ephraim Ritzman. And then we were off to Winter Garden, where we rode our bikes on the West Orange Trail, another beautiful bicycling trail. This is in downtown. The trail goes right down the center of a boulevard in old Winter Garden, as you can see here.
Passing well. I think I got an extra bike.
It's also part of the Rails to Trails. And then getting closer to the end of our trip, we stopped at my nephew Phil Fox's in Ormond by the Sea, which is just north of Daytona. He was very kind enough to give us a ride in his King Air 90 aircraft, a twin-engine turboprop, and took a nice trip along the Atlantic coast. Jean sitting in the co-pilot seat for a ride here. And then it was on to Jekyll Island. Beautiful spot. Wonderful bicycle trail right on the beach. And again, we were back to the to see what was happening with the wreckage of the Golden Ray. This is the bridge going over to Brunswick. Jean went back and retrieved my tripod so I could get some telephoto pictures of the wreckage. The Golden Ray was a 660-foot long cargo ship designed to haul cars, and it capsized right alongside of the shipping canal. And then for our last stop, we stopped and saw the Navy Band perform in Jekyll Island Convention Center. And that was a wonderful experience, and this was just before the coronavirus 6-foot rule, as you can see, went into effect right in the middle of over 2,000 people. Unfortunately, we came out unscathed. choir that was with them did a very nice job, and this soloist was wonderful.
It's a big world, baby, and you're little for a little while. It's a big world, baby, you can fiddle in your own style. It's a big sun, it's a big tree, it's a big boat, it's a big sea, it's a big dog, it's a big plane, it's a big cloud with a little bit of rain. It's a big world, baby, and you're little for a little while. It's a big world, baby, you can fiddle in your own style. It's a big house, it's a big chair, it's a big zoo, it's a big bear, it's a big street, it's a big car, it's a big sky with pretty little stars. It's a big world, baby, and you're little for a little while. It's a big world, baby, you can fiddle in your own style. It's a small bug, it's a small shell, it's a small bird, it's a small bell, it's a small cup, it's a small toy, it's a small girl, it's a small boy, it's a small coin, it's a small ring, it's a big world for every little thing. It's a big world, baby, and you're little for a little while. It's a big world, baby, you can fiddle in your own style. It's a big world, baby, and you're little for a little while. It's a big world, baby, you can fiddle in your own style. In your own style.